All right. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, conduits. My name is Claude Jones. I am the founder of San Deigo Tech Hub, and welcome to our first virtual San Deigo Tech Hub meeting. Really excited to be here with all of you today and to kind of share in this experience. The topic is one of importance, and really looking forward to coming together as a community. So from a topic perspective, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus, more specifically COVID-19. And this virus is something that is making a global impact across millions of people's lives across the world. And every day we are inundated with news. And whether it's something about job loss, some death, economic crisis, seeing our schools, our parks, even our beaches being shut down, hospitals being overrun, not able to handle the capacity that's there. The list goes on and on and on. And a lot of this information is hitting us close to home. And even some on this call have been impacted by COVID-19 in some form of fashion. Whether you've lost your job, whether you've seen the immediate impact of the virus had on a family member or a friend, or people struggling with just being quarantined, and how do you deal with that? And the big thing that we're looking at here is we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this situation could be impacting us, and it's something that's very scary. And so this is why we're here today. We are here to talk about adjusting the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt that COVID-19 has had. And we want to have an open and honest discussion this evening. We want to come together as a community, and we want to share the information with us just so that we're better formed, better equipped to deal with these uncertain times. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give a rundown of what you can expect for this evening during our time together. So there's going to be three parts to this. We're going to have the warm-up. This is going to be the icebreaker, which is a typical sort of San Deigo Tech Hub feel that we're going to try digitally. So it's a chance for us to go through, thank our sponsors, do some community updates, and just provide some information on what's going on. And yes, we're going to have a quiz. So we're going to see how we can do that virtually. Then we're going to get into our main event. We'll have the panel discussion with Q&A, and I'll talk about some of the logistics for that when we get to that point. And then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts and announcements at the end. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So this is a digital version of our networking hour. So I would love people to go and enjoy some pizza and soda. Go ahead and take a look at some of the informative booths and maybe get some swag. And then, if you see someone why don't you go ahead and say hi. This is just pictures from past San Deigo Tech Hub events, and what you can see is that it's always alive. And you see the faces smiling, people collaborating together. And one of the things that I've realized with the shutdown is how much I miss being around people. And I miss you guys, and I can't wait to get back in person with you all soon. The other thing that I'd like to know, I feel that I have a sense of humor. So this is my healthy tip for you on helping with clean hygiene. So just kind of take a moment and just embrace my humor for a second. So I'm pretty sure while you all are on mute, I'm feeling that there's laughter, there's smiles. You can appreciate, my sense of humor. So thank you for indulging me with that. Let's see. Next, I want to thank our sponsors. So while we're not physically in a Walmart Labs building, Walmart has sponsored this webinar, and we have Alex and Larry working behind the scenes to make sure all the technical difficulties are working as needed. And if we run into any hiccups, they're going to be right there to help support us. So thank you, gentlemen, for helping, and thank you, Walmart, for supporting this webinar. I'd also love to give a nice shout out to our annual event sponsor, Framework Science. They have helped contribute monetarily to San Deigo Tech Hub, since we've been here, and they help keep the events for our associates or for our conduits free. So thank you very much, Framework Science. I actually have a video that I'd like to share, at this point in time. And if we can turn that over, let's take a look at the video.
Just south of San Diego, at the end of the freeway and across the border, there's a tech revolution taking place in Tijuana. And one company, Framework Science, is quickly becoming a real role model for a budding Mexican business sector.
What has transpired over the years is that Tijuana is an emerging technology hub, and there is a tremendous amount of educated individuals here that are contributing to some of those incredible software applications.
The co-founders started the company to build a home for Tijuana's top talent.
I don't consider people to be Mexican engineers. I just consider them talented engineers.
They've been attracting engineering excellence with a culture of inclusion, a modern office space in the gastropub neighborhood of Zona Rio, and a business model that breaks from the traditional outsourcing paradigm.
Our model is basically making money off of ideas and not off the engineers. So therefore we can pay higher salaries, provide a greater positive environment where they're also learning new technologies.
Their recruiting strategy has paid off with a staff of experts from engineers to architects and UX designers, and are building everything from mobile MVPs to enterprise-level software.
What we do is speed to market recruiting, being able to recruit effectively, meaning the right individual for the right role, for the right culture, and a velocity that is required by the client.
The co-founders have created a company that's growing quickly, with a second office soon to open on the waterfront in Ensenada. But the real drive to build the business is to become a beacon for the bright minds of Baja California.
We created this business as a way to affect social change in Mexico.
If the client list and culture at the office are any indication, the team at Framework Science is making its mark on Mexico.
Every single product has a framework, and understanding how those frameworks impact one another is the science, and that's why we're called Framework Science.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank, that was a very awesome video. Thank you, Lonnie, for the work you're doing and your ongoing support for everything that you do for San Deigo Tech Hub. All right, next up, we have community update. Now, this is something that's important to me. I want to share two stories about how San Deigo Tech Hub is making an impact during this time of uncertainty. And our community has come together to really embody our motto of connect, inform, and empower. So first up, I'd like to say that Rupak Doshi, CEO of Omnichannel, he's also the leader of our entrepreneurship, small business, and our startup and small business workshop that's going to be starting in April. He has volunteered his time to do a survival guide for startups and small businesses during COVID-19. And so this is going to be happening on April 9th between 6 to 7. The format will be 30 minutes information. It's going to be talking about resources that are available for small businesses and startups to help sustain during this time of uncertainty. And then we'll have 30 minutes of Q&A. So for more information related to the session, please go to San Deigo Tech Hub on meetup.com. You'll be able to find that event. But this is going to be one, if you're have a business, you want to figure out how to sustain in this is one that you don't want to miss. So join that. What you're looking at here is, the community, San Deigo Tech Hub community, actually looking to see if we can't solve problems. So 2 weeks ago, there were a few people that had gone off, and they were saying, look, how can our conduits come together to help solve some challenges that we know that people are facing? Whether these challenges for individuals that are stuck at home and can't get access to supplies or food that they need, to individuals that just need help in general, or volunteers that want to give, but they don't know how to give or what to actually do. And so a week ago, I went and sent a note and said, hey, look, there's problems that exist. You have individuals that are quarantined, you got businesses that are shutting down. What can we do as a community to come together to help? And there was a lot of positive feedback, resources were being thrown around, but within a 3-day process, we created a website called We Are San Diego. So I want to give a big shout out to Steph Wen, and she actually came up with the name. But this is a website that is a community-based website that allows people to come, create listings to volunteer their time if they have needs, if they want to share resources. You have a chance to search across cities. You can filter on different opportunities that we have. So you can see the different listings that are currently in there right now. You can create listings. So once you register, you can create listings, and whether that listing is a need that you have, or if there's resources that you'd like to share, or if you're a business, you want to offer something, or if you want to have a volunteer opportunity. But this website is live. It's up and running. You can go to wearesandiego.org. And this is just another example to where you have passionate people that are coming together looking to solve a problem, and it's connecting, informing, and empowering individuals to make a difference during this difficult time. So really excited to see our community come together. And this is what San Deigo Tech Hub is all about. It's about helping other people. So huge, huge win. Really excited about what we're doing. All right. It is quiz time. Now, it's not a San Deigo Tech Hub meeting if we aren't doing some sort of quiz or icebreaker of that nature. So we are doing this today. So the way this is going to work, which is a little bit different, we're not going to have team A, team B. We're going to have the community going against some multiple choice true false questions. So we're going to be using the polling feature of Zoom. And what we're going to do, there's 5 questions that I'm going to be asking you guys to go through. It's going to test your knowledge about things around coronavirus, COVID-19. And we're going to go through, you get the poll, you have about 30 seconds to answer the question. After you answer that question, we'll stop that poll. We'll show the answer, talk about it. I'll share the results, and we'll do that. And then we'll get into the main program. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and start this poll. First question. Can coronavirus spread through water like it is, or like in a pool or hot tub? I'll give about 30 seconds for people to answer. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll is ending. Now, the answer here is false. There's no evidence that COVID-19 can spread through hot tubs. And we know that pools, if they're taken care of, should be disinfected, nice and clean. But just to kind of share the results and how the community did, we had 44% that said true, and 56% that said false. All right. So now let's go to the next question. The new coronavirus is viable up to blank number of hours after being placed on stainless steel and plastic. 30 seconds to answer. How well do you know your knowledge of the coronavirus? All right. Coming up. Results are in, locked and loaded. All right, 72 hours. And let's see how the community did. So good, you guys are looking sharp. I love it, 70% got the answer right. So other little tidbits of information: 4 hours after being placed on copper, 24 hours after being on cardboard. I guess through the air, it remains there for about 3 hours. So just be cautious and aware about some of these timings. Okay, third question. Let's get that up. According to a CNN report published on March 28th, the US had a total of blank unemployment claims filed, which is the highest in history. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is, you guys are on it. I love it. 77% has received the right answer. Let's show those results. Got 80% towards the tell in there. Nice job, folks. Yeah, and I mean, this just speaks to, the uncertainty and how the impact that COVID-19 is actually having on our economy. People are losing their jobs, and there's some serious things that are happening. So this is something that is definitely not a good time. All right, let's get towards that fourth question, please. It is now unsafe to get takeout from restaurants. All right, 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Polls are closed. Answer is false. And the community has responded as such. So, it is something that we want to make sure that we do wipe down packages and containers just in case, but there is no evidence whatsoever that says that coronavirus is transferred through food. And so this is coming from the CDC. And so usually, as we all know, it's spread through respiratory droplets that might exist, hence why we choose to say about 6 feet apart. Okay, so let's wrap up with this final question here. Nearly blank of the world's population is living under coronavirus-related restrictions. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Results locked. Answers: 1/3. 1/3 of the world's population is currently under restrictions. And what we have, let's see how the community did here. So 2/3 was the majority vote, 1/3 was the answer. All right, well, I think that we did a pretty good job on our virtual sort of polling, and hopefully folks have learned something new. It sounds like the majority of the people knew a lot of the information there, which was great. So, we did our job. So I'm going to stop sharing this and let's get on with our program. So before we get started, just a few ground rules for our Q&A session. Now, as you know, all the attendees are currently on view-only mode and you're muted. Okay, and that's just to make sure that we're having a good, clean, uninterrupted session. Now, there are 2 ways to ask questions during the Q&A. Now, we're going to have a dedicated time for Q&A, but as the speakers are going through other questions being asked, if there's something that you want to have a follow-up, in the bottom, of your screen, you're going to see a little Q&A question thing. You can ask your questions there. People can see what other questions are being asked. So if you want to upvote a question because it's something you really want to know, perfect. Let's get that done. You also have the chance to raise your hand virtually. So for those that say, I don't want to have to type a question, I'd rather just ask my question. Raise your hand. We'll be bouncing back and forth between the chatbot questions and people that choose to do it. Now, if you choose to ask your question, what we'll do is that, I'll call you by name. And then based on that, I'll unmute you, and you'll have to actually accept the unmute on your side, and then you'll be able to ask your question. After you're done with your question, you go back on mute, and then the panelist will answer your question appropriately. Let's be respectful of the types of questions that we're asking. If anything comes through the chat box that just isn't something that's respectful, I'm not going to ask it. If you are being called on and you're speaking, just be respectful, to others with that question, and we'll go from there. So without further ado, let's get into the main program. And so I would like to introduce Martin Danner. He is the founder of Conversaire, which is a podcast dedicated to helping, the youth of the future help strengthen their communication skills. He is also the voice behind the official San Deigo Tech Hub podcast, Conduit. So Martin, thank you very much for moderating this session. And I turn it over to you to help introduce our panelists.
Well, thank you so much, Claude, and thanks for getting us off to a great start. Hey, I'm really excited to be here. And the topic we'll be discussing tonight is fear, uncertainty, and doubt around the coronavirus, otherwise known as FUD. Now, FUD is like a state of mind. A little bit of it can actually be sort of helpful, but too much of it can cause people to behave in unhelpful ways. So with that in mind, our objective tonight is to replace as much of this FUD as possible with factual information around things like working from home, financial matters that might affect you, job and career, and maintaining a sense of community in this age of self-isolation. But in classic San Deigo Tech Hub tradition, we're going to have a little fun with the introductions. So what I'd like to do is ask the other panelists to take your cameras and microphones off of mute. And I'm going to start with Augstin Lebron. Now, Augstin is a co-founder and managing director of Essilen Research, a consulting firm that helps tech companies scale their businesses. He's an electrical engineer, quantitative trader, and angel investor. He has extensive experience working in geographically dispersed teams, and he's going to share some of that experience with us tonight. Hello, Augstin.
Hey, Martin, how are you?
Good, thank you. Hey, Augstin, let me tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions, and I'm going to ask you to give us a response that's 2 seconds or less. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, let's do this. Now, what's the worst purchase you've ever made?
Probably a set of weights that I bought so that I could work out at home. And it turns out that I don't like working out at home. It's kind of ironic that I'm now stuck working out at home.
Oh dear, okay. Well, what do you think was cool when you were growing up, but it's not cool now?
A million things, but probably Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It seemed very compelling as a teenager and doesn't seem anywhere near as compelling now.
Don't buy into that, huh? Okay. Which of your personality traits have been most useful?
So I would say I generally think pretty rationally in stressful and risky situations. And so I think over the course of my career, that's let me take reasonable risks that maybe other people might not have.
That does sound rather useful. Now, what do you miss most about being a kid?
Well, so I'm getting a firsthand look at this right now. Kids learn in such an effortless way. Like they kind of learn whether they want to or not. And I'm definitely envious of that ability.
Indeed. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for that, Augstin. Next up is Donna Fremed. Hello, Donna.
Hello.
Now, Donna operates her own human resources consulting firm, DLF Global. Donna wears many hats as a human resources consulting, including HR director and manager, senior business partner, and career coach. She's seen companies through many ups and downs, including the dot-com bust and the global financial crisis. Hey, Donna, are you ready for a few rapid-fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, let's do this. What was the worst purchase you've made?
Buying a used car on a rainy night. It wound up not going up hills.
Oh, no. Hey, what did you think was cool when you were growing up, but it's not cool now?
Bell bottoms. I hate bell bottoms.
Yes. I vaguely remember those. Hey, which of your personality traits do you think is most useful?
Perseverance.
Excellent. And what do you miss most about being a kid?
Playing with my foreign dolls.
Okay. And what's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
I was taking a trip from San Diego to New York, and I got laid over in Dallas. And it was raining, and there was tickets to the playoff game, the baseball playoff game. I grabbed the tickets. I grabbed a guy that I didn't know. We jumped in a pizza truck and went to the game.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Hey, well, thank you for that, Donna. We'll be coming back to you a little later. Next up, we're going to introduce Eric Bibel. Now, Eric is a registered loan consultant and a home mortgage expert. He keeps a sharp eye on the financial and economic landscape. Eric's seen the housing market go through many changes during his career, so he has a pretty good idea of what we're in for. He'll talk to us about the impact of the pandemic on the economy and the home loan market. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Martin. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you here. All right, my friend, are you ready for some questions?
Bring it on.
Let's do it. All right. What is the worst purchase you've ever made, Eric?
My car.
Okay. Can you say lemon?
Yeah.
What did you think was cool when you were growing up, but is not cool now?
Bleached hair tips.
Okay.
That was me.
That was you, huh?
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
good deal. And which of your personality traits have you found to be most useful?
My work ethic, first in, last out.
Fantastic. And what do you miss most about being a kid?
Being a kid, not having anything to worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And what is the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
My wife and I bought tickets to Europe literally a day before and flew into France on a whim for a week. So
Wow.
yes, that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Hey, thanks for that, Eric. We'll be coming
Thank
back
you.
to you in a little bit. All right, next up is Isabel Wen. Good evening, Isabel.
Hi, Martin.
Now, Isabel is a nanomaterial scientist who's worked with a number of biotech companies in the San Diego region. And a lot of these companies are actually working on solutions for the coronavirus pandemic. She's also served as head of community for a biotech startup incubator in the area and currently serves in a leadership position for the Southern California chapter of Women in Bio, which is a national all-volunteer organization promoting women in the life sciences. We'll tap into Isabel's knowledge and experience for insights on maintaining a sense of community during these challenging times. And we'll also look for tips on applying critical thinking to identify misinformation in COVID-19. Okay, Isabel, are you ready for your questions?
Let's do it.
Here we go. What's the worst purchase you've ever made?
A hat that doesn't fit.
Okay. And what do you think was cool when you were growing up but is not cool anymore?
This will totally date my age. Hot topic.
What is it?
Hot topic.
Okay. And which of your personality traits have been most useful?
Openness.
Great. And what do you miss most about being a kid?
A complete lack of responsibilities.
And what's the most spontaneous thing you ever done, Isabel?
Vacationing alone.
Very cool. Well, there you have it, folks. Now that we know a little bit more about our panelists, let's dive into the discussion. And I wanted to remind you again, any of you can ask a question at any time using the Q&A chat box, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of this discussion. All right. Now, Augstin, I'm going to start with you again. With the recent government-imposed shutdown, a number of businesses have introduced a work-from-home policy. Do you feel companies and their employees were prepared for the shutdown, and if not, why?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of variety. Like there's a lot of variation. There some companies, like for example, software companies that still had sort of an ability and already had an ability to run remote teams and that sort of thing. I think they transitioned pretty smoothly by and large. Obviously, companies that had to have sort of physical access to things like labs or something like that, definitely much more difficult. A lot of the companies that I've talked to in the last 3 weeks have been tech companies that weren't, very remote enabled. And so now they're sort of forced to scramble to do that now. And so honestly, that's kind of what I spend most of my days right now doing, is kind of helping them through that crazy transition.
And how's that going?
Well, I mean, it's super interesting. Like what's super interesting about it is that the difficulties they're having in going from local to remote are actually sort of mostly pre-existing difficulties they already had that just sort of got magnified by going remote. That's the thing that I sort of discover as I talk to more and more of these companies.
Wow, okay. So now work from home can be difficult for individuals new to remote work or parents that have to deal with the complexities of balancing work, being a teacher, dealing with childcare. Are there any tips you can share to help make our homes as collaborative and engaging as the office?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm sure we've all seen a ton of like articles and tips on things like, find a dedicated space to sort of work from, make it feel like you're going to work as opposed to just sort of working from your bed in your pajamas, right? A lot of us maybe don't necessarily have that luxury, especially, if we have kids and, maybe your wife works too. And so you kind of have to make it work. But number one thing I actually want to tell people is to mute almost all of your notifications. If there's number one tip that I want to give people that aren't used to going to a remote-based environment, mute almost all of your notifications. You do not need to be on that hamster wheel. People will understand that you're on a remote environment. And a lot of people feel stressed out working remotely because they feel they need to respond to everything. They need to get involved in every discussion. They need to talk about everything with everyone. You don't have to. So take the temperature down, get off the hamster wheel, you'll feel better and you'll do a lot better work as a result of it.
Great advice. Now, I hear over and over again the importance of maintaining a routine. What do you think?
Yeah, routine is good. I mean, it varies. Like I'm a very routine person, and so it's huge for me. Other people kind of like the maybe a little bit more variety. But the other thing that's super important about working remotely is that it's a very low feedback environment. People feel kind of disconnected from their team. And a lot of that obviously is like you're not there physically in the same place every day, but a lot of it is because you're not getting some of that low grade, how are people perceiving me kind of feedback that you're used to. And so ask for feedback, ask for as much feedback as you can from people you report to, the people who report to you, your teammates, just like get in the habit of just feedback.
Sounds great. Hey, thanks for that, Augstin. Eric, do you believe that the COVID-19 epidemic has caused a recession in the United States?
Yes, Martin. First off, thank you. Great question. Absolutely. I think we're in the midst of a recession. And just clarification around what exactly a recession is. It's 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And really with a number of states on mandatory lockdown, shelter in place, we're seeing businesses on a day-to-day basis just essentially closing their doors. It's undoubtable that we will be faced with some tough economic times, and ultimately a recession will come. Claude showed a slide earlier. One of the questions was around the unemployment numbers. Highest number of initial jobless claims ever filed in the United States, 3.3 million.
Shocking, yeah.
Shocking, and really, compared to some of the other analysis, Goldman Sachs, Citibank, they were projecting in excess of 5 million in some instances. So there is some silver lining there. Will it get worse before it gets better? Absolutely, but I think here's what I'm telling all my clients right now. There is silver lining in it. Right now, it's ugly. Absolutely. I don't want to downplay it. We're in the midst of something we've never seen as a society, but it's a crossroad to a great outcome. This is all pandemic driven. This is not like the recession of 2008, the Great Recession, Great Depression of 2008, where there were a number of factors that tied to the overall collapse. This is 100% pandemic driven. When this comes to an end, we will see a quick snapback. So it's just hunkering down, bearing through the unfortunate times we are in now. But on the other side of this, we will come out and come out stronger than we did before.
That's such an important thing to keep in mind. Now, for the homeowners or potential homeowners in our audience, is this a good time to either purchase or refinance a home?
Great question. Absolutely. Business is still acting in normal capacity in the real estate market. There has been a tremendous amount of changes across the board with mortgage rates, with activity overall. Biggest sentiment here, it is still a phenomenal time to purchase real estate and refinance loans. Interest rates are at an all-time low, driven by the fact of the Federal Reserve's intervention to create liquidity within our markets. They have actually suppressed mortgage interest rates in most instances, in most products. So for the refinance component, yes. Martin, you and I spoke about earlier about consolidation. So leveraging the equity within your home to help put yourself in a different cash position. So through like a cash out refinance with rates where they are, access to capital right now is extremely cost effective. And also the purchase market is so, walking into the pandemic was so unbelievably strong. And really the forecasts they're out are even better. So now if you are in the market to purchase a real estate, this might be an opportunity to really grab a deal before kind of the chaos comes back to it.
Hey, that sounds great. Now, I understand the Federal Reserve set the interest rate at 0. Does that mean I can get a 0% loan?
Great question. No. So what the Fed controls is the monetary funds rate. And what that is what banks charge one another to hold money overnight. Where you will see impact is on short-term debt, home equity lines of credit, car loans, student loans, credit cards. The Federal Reserve does not control mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are controlled by mortgage-backed securities. The Fed did step in, though, and become the primary purchaser of mortgage-backed securities, which have driven interest rates for mortgages, long-term debt down. Long and the short here, because, though, of the Fed's intervention with the monetary funds rate, long-term mortgage rates will get in line with the drop to near zero. Will we see 0% interest rates on mortgages? If we do, the system's broken. I'm expecting and forecasting rates to kind of level out in the mid to low threes, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, so maybe not zero, but that's pretty doggone low.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for that, Eric.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. I'm going to throw a question out to the entire panel. Feel free to chime in, everybody. Social distancing has had a major impact on small businesses. Do you feel there could be an alternative way to help reduce the fear of spreading the virus without impacting business owners and employees?
I could take that. Not without test and trace. I mean, if you can't test, then you don't know who has it and who doesn't. Like, nobody's going to want to leave their house, whether you lift the restrictions or not. And so I feel like, given that we don't test anywhere near as much as we should, I don't think we have much of a choice. That's kind of my view of it.
So this pandemic needs to be data driven, and right now we don't have the data.
Right.
Okay, anybody else have a thought on that?
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I want to address and point out is this numbers game that we're all playing of, counting the cases every day. But to understand that number in the context of what you're looking at, so counting total number of cases isn't really going to mean anything to most people unless you run a hospital and you have a finite number of ventilators and hospital beds and staff. So just kind of considering that, I think kind of like what Eric said, like, don't want to downplay it. This is, we've never experienced anything like this in our lives. There's validity in some of the fear, but because, like Augstin said, we don't have information. We don't know what percentage of the population has coronavirus. We don't have enough tests to even provide that information. And then the other thing is, even if we do everything right, this is always going to impact our businesses because it is a pandemic.
Good point.
I guess I look at it differently. I guess in our ability to understand what's going on, and this might heighten before it lessens, I think we need to watch it over time with our brilliant scientists and others that are monitoring it. And I'm saying with the small business, that I've seen a lot of small businesses be able to use social distances, and maybe as we come back, they'll be able to mark off the distances in order for people to interface with each other.
Okay, hey, thanks for that. I'm going to switch to Isabel now. Isabel, you've done quite a bit of work managing communities. How do we maintain a sense of community in this age of self-isolation?
That's a great question, Martin. So I'll start off with a really easy suggestion, which I'm sure we're all guilty of, but just pick up the phone and call somebody, text them, instant message, email, or whatever, even video chat. We have the technology. The important thing is to just actually reach out to people. I think a lot of people underestimate how big of an impact that can make for some people. A lot of people live alone. They haven't seen someone in a long time other than for work, maybe. And, when I've reached out to friends in recent days, they just spill out like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to, just talk to somebody. And it's really important to keep good track of your mental health, and it's good for them, it's good for you. Just ask, how are you? And along with community, there's been a lot of resources being generated. Like Claude shared earlier, the San Deigo Tech Hub kind of came together really quickly and created a resource sharing center. And we're seeing that a lot across all different organizations, different communities across the world. And it's awesome. So do a Google search, you'll find whatever you need. And if it's not there, start one. And
fantastic.
Then one more comment.
I encourage everybody to have a look at that website. I'm sure that Claude will tell us a bit more about it again later, and there'll be notes about it in the show notes. So have a look, contribute if you can. and be kind. Thanks, Isabel.
Yeah.
Hey, another thing I wanted to ask you, there's so much information about COVID-19 swirling around, facts and figures and claims, what have you. How can we tell actual fact from fiction with all this information?
So that's a really good point and a good concern. So I'm going to tell a really short, quick story to kind of make my point. So I'm sure you've all heard about ibuprofen and not using it with coronavirus cases. So far, I looked into it as far as I could stand in terms of the rabbit hole of information, but essentially that's an not backed claim, scientifically speaking. I saw an article, I think some weeks back, and I also thought it was true. It was a reputable journal, news journal, and they had cited the World Health Organization as making this claim. So I looked up, I just did a Google search, World Health Organization, ibuprofen, COVID-19. And I couldn't find anything. They never made a statement about this. The only thing I could find today or this week was a statement over Twitter from the World Health Organization that said they don't support this claim and it's not scientifically backed. And I saw another article from, I think it was wired.com. They also did their own research into it, and they found this trail. Essentially, there was a published opinion letter in a medical journal called The Lancet, which is a really well-known and respected medical journal. However, it was taken out of context. It was an opinion. It was not a research publication. It was a limited sample, and it was in patients who had severe heart disease and were taking beta blockers in conjunction with the ibuprofen with coronavirus. So there's a lot of context that was lost there. One doctor saw it, I believe they were in France, and then posted about it. The media got a hold of it, spread like wildfire. Everybody was telling, everyone else, and started kind of like making up where they got the information from. And somehow somebody said the World Health Organization said that. So just to be careful, but to make my point, kind of how I got to that information is, so I'm a scientist by training. And so we're trained to be skeptical of all the information that we get, even if it sounds true, even if who's saying it is a really respected person. Just critical thinking and being more like, really think about what is the context of how that information is being generated. There's a lot of questions to ask, but I'll just, just a couple things to keep it short, but essentially, in this case, like who was saying it? Did they have the authority to say it? Do they have a bias in what they're saying? Do they have confirmation bias? Was it a good data set that was large enough? Was it statistically significant? Was it peer reviewed and replicated?
Mm-hmm.
Did they apply to only specific conditions? Is there correlation versus causation?
Yeah.
And even then, experts can still disagree on data. So that's something to really consider, especially with coronavirus, because it's so new and data is coming out so fast, but we're trying to keep up with it. So there's a lot of context that's lost and misconstrued and misinterpreted. So just caution people.
So really what it comes down to is that you need to take the information within context. You need to practice critical thinking, and you need to confirm the information with independent sources. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and as sources, I would clearly define that as being a generator of the source. So there's one reason why everyone directs you to the CDC website, because they're well-respected source and not other news articles.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks for that, Isabel. I really appreciate that. I'm going to turn to Donna now. Donna, it's time to talk about human resources, talk about the people side of things here. A number of companies are currently in economic distress and are now faced with making tough decisions on individuals who found themselves jobless or finding it difficult to get employed. What advice can you provide to both companies and job seekers during this time of uncertainty?
Yes, it's a tough one. I mean, we just shared the 3.3 million across the US number, and last week it was 2 point something. So it is a very, fearful time, especially us sitting here, either being an employer or being a employee or job seeker. But San Diego's got the true grit. I mean, last week, San Diego Business Journal says, we got it. We're going to make it through with the uncertainty. So what I can offer in terms of what's going on is last Friday, Trump did did sign the CARES Act. And the CARES Act does, for the employer, have money coming in for the small business. There's small business forgivable loans, as well as in the unfortunate situation where they've laid off people. Employees will get $1,200 per employee and $500 per children. So there's several aspects of the CARE Act, which more information is on my website. In addition, the small business loans are available and a little bit less process itself in terms of getting money. So money is out there. Also, I'm happy to report that a lot of foundation money is starting to pour into San Diego. San Diego Foundation is working really hard at it, and there was just an announcement that the Gates Foundation gave La Jolla Immunology Institute $1.7 million. That was just announced today. So there is money coming into it for those of you who are involved in startups. Once again, on my website, there's more to that. I just want to also just say that I do recommend to employers and employees to either go to the TED Talk or read Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. This whole process involves a lot of courage in times of uncertainty. She uses the word rumble with your vulnerability. So I do recommend that as something that if you have a few minutes to even go to one of her TED Talks, that would be really helpful. In terms of the job seeker, I know a lot of people are kind of nervous. They've just lost their jobs or they think they might lose their jobs. I wanted to just tell you some of the current resources here in San Diego in terms of you saying I want to go out there and get a job. Last night, the governor just set up a special thing for people who want to help in the healthcare industry. You don't necessarily have to be a doctor or a nurse. You can be a coder, a medical transcriptionist. There's all kinds of healthcare workers that are necessary, and also they're relaxing the requirements. So if you've been studying nursing and you don't quite have it yet, or you're a student, whatever it is, that there's a website for that. There's quite a number of companies that are hiring. Andrew Seaman out of LinkedIn gives you the whole long list, including Amazon and Walmart and CVS and so forth. So there is a lot of jobs. Also locally, I have put 2 resources on my website that people want call center workers by Monday. They're hiring 100 for a Kearney Mesa company. So people who want to, really concerned about getting work right now. In terms of the job seeker beyond that, people need to be proactive. Don't think that because of this, you can't do anything. First of all, I'm a strong believer in everyone has feelings, and you can look at the change itself. There are articles and things to think about in terms of how you feel. It's a very, almost like a grief kind of feeling, but it's important to assess, evaluate where you're at in terms of your strengths and your interests in this word called skill transferability. Because we're working in a restaurant doesn't mean that you don't have skills in other areas. There are an awful lot of people available to help in terms of resume writing and job search, whether it be the San Diego Workforce Partnership or online. I also just want to close in that and say that why don't we use our Slack, our San Diego Tech Slack more in talking to each other, consider each other as a support group, so that I highly recommend that.
Hey, that's great advice, Donna. So really, it turns out that employers need to keep good communications going between themselves and their employees. So everybody's in the loop and they're dealing with the anxieties that people are dealing with. And that maybe employees and job seekers need to kind of go out of their comfort zone and be willing to do things that they don't normally do.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. Now, it's about time, I think, to open things up for questions and answers. So I'm going to ask Claude. Claude, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. So I'm going to give this one to Donna. Gabe is asking, Donna, what is your actual website? Is that something you can just share?
Yes, I was just thinking that. Let me tell you my website. So it's DLFREMED.wixsite.com/DLF Global.
And Donna, one of the things you can do too is in the question and answer, you can type that answer in.
Sure.
And then that way that can be there for people that need it. They can copy and paste that in. So thank you very much for that. This next question we have from Stephen. This is for Augstin. Augstin, is it Augstin or Augustine?
It's like 45-55, so it's cool. I'm good either way.
All right. I apologize if I'm.
No worries.
So this question from Stephen says, I have ignored problems with Cox for years. Now that I'm teaching from home, I'm worried about the quality of my internet connection. Are the companies you are working with having issues with public infrastructure? How are they dealing with it? What lessons should we be learning?
Yeah, so definitely this is a thing that people are running across. Like, nobody intended to have home internet for the purposes of business for the most part. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. But honestly, I think this is more of like an IT question, and I can sort of gesture in some useful directions. One is you kind of need to figure out where the slowdown is happening. So like plug your computer in with an Ethernet cable to the actual router and then do a speed test just to make sure that it is indeed your provider and not something in your local network. Most of the time, it's just that the Wi-Fi from your computer to your router or to your Wi-Fi point is just not great. And so maybe buy a newer one or a better one, maybe move around the antennas a little bit. Like 90% of the time, that's the issue. So I would start checking there first.
All right. Thank you very much. This question is from Benjamin. He is asking, what are your thoughts about early stage startups in the coming months?
So my answer to it is that on my website, you'll see that there's a source that money is coming into this town, both through Connect. They are continuing to have their presentations from startups. And then I found another source that there's some money from Northern California that wants to be spent. So that's early stage startup.
And speaking for Tech Coast Angels, we're still doing, we're still looking at companies, we're still doing due diligence, we're still writing checks. And so, there's nothing that's been shut off, certainly.
Okay, so this question is for Eric from Mary. As for purchasing real estate, I know there are programs out there that allow you to have zero down payment. Would that still apply today?
Great question, Mary. As it stands now, there are still, so if you're a veteran or active duty with the military, there are still 100% financing options available through the VA loan. As far as those bond programs that address down payment assistance, some have temporarily suspended operation, and it really comes down to the risk factor associated to repayment. Think about it from your own personal money, what you're going to invest in. The person with 0% equity, traditionally lower credit score, that person most likely is not going to repay their mortgage. So for the time being, where there's concern around unemployment, we're seeing a pullback in that space. There are still, though, options. If you would like to explore them specific, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to help.
Okay, next question that we have here is, I'm a startup that has not yet launched. How should I go about deciding whether to delay my launch, and how long should I delay?
I could take a stab at that to start with. I guess it just depends on what your startup is, right? Like if it's giving rides for kids to go to school, probably, right? If it's doing anything that's helping people work more efficiently from home, probably now's an awesome time to just go as hard as you can. So I think it just greatly depends on the nature of your business.
All right, I know. Rupak is on, and I know he's actually going to be hosting the actual startup meetup that we have going on. So Rupak, if you'd like to answer any questions, you can raise your hand, and I can unmute you if you want to address anything that might be coming through. If you're still around. If not, we can continue on. I did go through, and I'm posting Donna's link in the answer there. So that should be her website address should be there as part of the question. So you guys should have that. Let's see, any other questions from the community? All right. Well, Martin, I think that is it.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Claude. I appreciate it. Actually, I do. Sorry, go ahead.
Rupak, did you, sorry, Sarah, did you want to, I can unmute you if you'd like to answer any questions around startups or anything. There are a few questions that were coming. We had the panelists filled them, but if there was anything that you wanted to add around startups, we can give you an opportunity to do so.
I just wanted to make one other comment regarding childcare. I will have information on my website regarding as childcare becomes issues for individuals of trying to balance having your kids home all the time, and if there's issues of one spouse needing to go to a healthcare job or working and just kind of balancing everything, the YMCA is being really helpful in that area.
All right, thank you. So I did unmute you, Rupak. You need to unmute yourself or give permission to unmute yourself, and you should be able to speak.
Well, while we're waiting for Rupak, I'd like to put a question out to everybody, not only the panelists, but also the folks watching at home. You can answer this in the Q&A box. Is there a silver lining around this whole COVID-19 thing? And will we come out as a community stronger as a result? What are there any positive benefits coming out of this pandemic? So if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, and I'll also ask the panelists if they have any thoughts on that.
I firmly believe that there's, with every bad, there's always good. One of the biggest thing is looking at kind of our reliance upon our foreign components. So looking at bringing a lot of the infrastructure for critical components back domestically. I think that will definitely need to be revisited, and it hopefully get some relief to bring some of that back to the United States.
I wanted to comment on regarding work. Companies can really look at how people do their work, what's their business all about. Things are already showing up in China, and in terms of the pollution information, how much commuting we've been doing, what's the balance, people's balance in terms of family and home. And so we can ask ourselves a lot of questions of how we've been approaching things.
Good point. Anybody else?
To add to that, I think we're already seeing, like we've already mentioned, an increase in a sense of responsibility to take care of each other in society. And I think that's really awesome. And I think that will continue and stick around.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, speaking, maybe putting my trader hat on, I think people are starting to maybe understand a little bit more about tail risks and, things that are extremely unlikely to happen, but that have incredibly large effects when they do happen, and sort of reserving resources and money so that we can actually address those. So it's kind of the dog that didn't bark thing.
Great, thanks. And Kathleen also put in the Q&A box, she thinks we'll see a positive momentum towards universal health care. And Stephen, in education, we're recognizing how the digital divide really isn't an equity problem. We're seeing that many schools can't provide minimum levels of education due to lack of internet access, and we'll need to address this situation on the other side. So if we'll see some good things coming out of this education system. Great. Claude, are we going to be able to hear from Rupak?
Can you guys hear me at all?
Yes. Hello.
Hey. Yeah, sorry. I was with my 2-year-old, so I had to figure out a way to engage her and then come out and be able to chat otherwise.
Well, she's welcome to say hello as well.
Yeah, so I think I'll be covering a lot about helping startups and small businesses throughout this entire period of uncertainty. But the one thing that I wanted to mention in response to that question specifically of like, should I delay my startup? Should I consider, uncertainties during this time or whatever? The one thing that I've been hearing from most of the investment community out there is that they all want to see a COVID-19 mitigation plan from the startup. So your startup will be affected in one way or another, be it positively or be it negatively, by whatever's happening with COVID, all the changes that we're seeing. And these changes are not going to go away anytime over the next couple of months. So you are going to start in one way or another, but what you'll want to have is a really strong mitigation strategy that basically walks through all the different backup plans that you have if plan A or B doesn't work because of COVID specifically. And that's definitely one thing that, and if you do have a good plan there and you talk to an investor about that, you did two things. One, you basically showed the investor how you think about a situation. And two, you just showed them that you're very willing to adapt, which is like one of the top criteria in terms of personalities of founders that investors look for. And Augstin, you can probably talk about this a bit more from an investor's mindset standpoint of how they think about founders when they first approach them. But these are 2 points that I wanted to quickly put forward.
Yeah, I agree entirely with you, Rupak. Showing that you can sort of think about risks and have put together plans for risks, I think is an incredibly valuable skill to show.
So risk management's front and center, and who would have thought a month ago that pandemic would be on the risk plan, on the risk register? But here we are. Okay, Claude, do we have anything else?
Nothing else. There are a few more responses, I think, to your question.
Well, let me read those out. So Mary, I believe we'll all come out of this, but with a whole lot of learning experience. Let me bring it over here. Yes, this is definitely a learning experience. This applies to all sorts of industries. How should each company scope out the plan in times of crisis and how to elevate their plans? It's a profound experience that changes each individual. Thanks for that, Mary. And I think that not only companies need to have those plans, but certainly communities and governments as well. Benjamin, our society is taking a huge break from business as usual. As long as we support those who are weak and provide a safety net, there will be a great series of sense of appreciation and even more so innovation. Hey, thanks for that, Benjamin. Yeah, I think it's really important that we be kind and help one another. Appreciate you bringing that. Jerome, it's a great demonstration that global challenge can be tackled worldwide and that society are able to change behavior. It sounds like we might be able to address global warming, access to water, and poverty, and who knows what else. Good points, Jerome. Appreciate you putting that out there. And Miguel, I believe in addition to going whiteboard in terms of reevaluating supply chains and manufacturing, there will probably be a large push into rethinking how higher education will be delivered in the future. Good point, Miguel. I know a lot of schools have gone online, and I don't know how that's working out, but it does feel like no matter what happens here, we're really not going to go right back to business as usual after this is all over, and hopefully some good things, some innovation, some improvements will come out of it.
Martin, we do have another question that came in. This was from the Stellars Group. Digital programs, less traveling, remote work will be more popular, less traffic on the freeway. What businesses, do we see growing? E-games, content streaming. Obviously, Zoom is a common household name at this point in time. Do we see other businesses sort of thriving in this environment?
Well, it's kind of interesting to see some of the list also, in terms of our pets. A lot more people are relying on their pets. It's kind of humorous. The pets are wondering when the people are going to leave and they're getting taken care of. So Petco is a good investment and probably will be having a lot of jobs as well.
Excellent point. Well, I know my doggies are getting a lot of love and attention these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and here's another thing to keep in mind. What if after this is all over, say 1 in 5 commuters can actually work from home, or maybe even just on average, people could work at home 1 day a week. Well, that takes 20% of the cars off of the freeway. And that could go a long way towards alleviating some of the traffic issues that we're dealing with. So, anywho, anything else, Claude?
Let's see here. That is it on the question side, and no hands raised. So I think we're turn it over to you, ma'am.
Well, good. Well, look, I'm going to wrap it up then. I'd like to thank all of our panelists this evening for an interesting and informative discussion. Augstin, Isabel, Donna, Eric, thanks so much for joining me today.
Really enjoyed it.
And although we're all physically apart, this meeting is really a good example of how we can continue to connect, inform, and empower one another. As we approach the peak of this epidemic, please be careful and look after one another because people's lives depend on it. And finally, to all who have joined us, I wanted to say it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you as the moderator this evening. Thank you so much, and I'll hand it back to Claude.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists, for all your support and help. And great job, Martin, facilitating. We are going to wrap up, everyone. So I think that for our first virtual meeting, we did a great job. I appreciate the audience participation. I want to thank the panelists and the moderator for everything, our support from our sponsors. Thank you, Walmart, for helping to make this an event with very little hiccups. I think success overall. So let me wrap up with a few announcements. The first thing I'd like to announce is that San Deigo Tech Hub is the official sponsor of Top Tech Awards. And what you're seeing here are the individuals from San Deigo Tech Hub that have been nominated for these awards. Now, the Top Tech Awards it's an award that recognizes technologist leaders that are using technology in a way that is helping not only to benefit, the community, to help use their technology in a very innovative way, and just really make an impact. And so I'm proud to say that we have 15 members within San Deigo Tech Hub that have been nominated, for this award. So thank you for all you do. Now, there are plenty of people that can be nominated, and this is something that is a self-nominated thing. So let me pull up the website address here on where you could go. But you can go to toptechawards.com and follow the links to figure out how you could actually nominate someone that you feel is making impact within the community. So big ups to our San Deigo Tech Hub community conduits, great work. I'd also like to announce that the tech workout is still going on strong. There's going to be a virtual session on April 23rd. And in honor of Earth Day, this session is going to focus on home automation. What an awesome, relevant topic with the Raspberry Pi. So sustainability, energy conservation, home automation, Raspberry Pi, April 26, 10 a.m. to 3, virtual workout. It's going to be, I think, promoted on our meetup.com website. So look out for more information there. And last but not least, on April 28th next month, on a Tuesday at 6 p.m., we are going to do a virtual session. So the event that was originally going to be scheduled this month is going to go virtual. So Adam, Anna, and and Angela will be going through, and we're going to be creating virtual sessions of their workshops. So more information about this in the coming weeks. I'm hoping to get all the logistics nailed down probably that second week of April. But really looking forward to this and seeing what we can't do to have 3 separate breakout sessions and go virtual with that. But with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining. Thank you very much. Usually meetup.com will have a link that goes out that says, how did you like this? We would really love your feedback. If there's anything that we can do to improve, we'd love to hear it. I think with the lockdown is going to go on for another month or so. So let's see what we can't do. If we have to continue to go virtual, we'd like to make sure that we're continuing the San Diego Tech Hub momentum and adding value to our community. So thank you very much for joining. I look forward to seeing you all soon, and stay safe and healthy. Bye all.